Hi, this is Alan Shea with our Society Show, and we are here in Altadena with the moderator of today's Women in Science here in Altadena at the Altadena Library.
What was the most exciting or rewarding moment of your career, and what is like the biggest piece of advice you would give to someone thinking of going into science?
There are a lot of exciting parts of my career, but usually the one that everyone likes to hear is I got paid to be on Shark Week, so that was pretty darn exciting. Now I just need to be on a panel with Sylvia Earle and then I can die. But and the second part was?
Biggest piece of advice. So any tips or like?
So I was told when I was a little girl I wouldn't be good at math because I was a girl, but maybe because I'm left-handed. So if you like something, just don't listen to people that tell you you're not good at something if you're passionate about it. I wasn't supposed to be good at math. I wasn't going to ever amount to anything. I wasn't ever, I was the kid that didn't have any mentors, that nobody wanted, and guess what? I put myself through college, and now I'm on Shark Week, so. So just don't give up. Just be really tenacious.
The most exciting thing that happened for me was I led the autonomy design, which is what my job is, for a satellite for Boeing, and the most exciting thing was sitting in a conference room with a projector on, watching it get launched on a rocket. That was the coolest. I was like, I did that. Not just me, but I have some small part in it, and that feels really cool. And the biggest piece of advice I would get, kind of goes along with what April was saying, is I saw this, I don't know who said it because I saw it on Twitter, so, but it's, don't accept criticism from people you wouldn't go to for advice. Yeah. So that one has changed my life, so people are always going to say, people will always have opinions, but what matters is what your opinion of you is. And if you know you want to do something and you're motivated and you want to work hard and get to where you want to be, you deserve to be there, and don't let anyone else tell you otherwise.
The most exciting thing that happened to me was while I was an undergrad at UCLA. I actually initiated the project and started the research that identified the last unknown enzyme involved in vitamin C synthesis. Yeah, there were, news publications, my name, you could Google my name, it was everywhere. That was incredibly exciting. And it also leads me to my biggest learning. After discovering, last unknown enzyme involved in vitamin C synthesis, I said, okay, I'm going to go to Caltech, and obviously, next step, I'm going to cure cancer. That's next. But I didn't. And I heard Oprah say something that was really amazing. She said, when she left her Oprah show, people asked her, so what are you going to do next? How are you going to top yourself? And she said, I don't have to. I don't have to top myself. And so I had a wonderful and amazing discovery that I will always be proud of, but I don't have to top it. I don't have to feel, cure cancer to feel good and to know that I'm still a good scientist. I can do mundane things that no one else will understand if you're outside of that field, and it's going to be okay.
Hopefully it only keeps going up from here, but being a part of that team has been so great. I entered that team in my last year of undergrad, and it was kind of the first time in my career as a student where not only were people extremely friendly and kind, they also really took me seriously in the role that I had, and it wasn't like, oh, you're an undergrad. I had my role, and I was referred to as that, and I was respected just as much as any other person that had that role. So that was really cool, and it gave me a lot of confidence. And then these pieces of advice have been so great and really deep and philosophical. So I'm sorry, mine's going to be slightly less philosophical, but my tip is write everything down.
So we have another one of the great, I'm going to call you, scientists is now contributing to an awareness. And I think with social media, certainly with the rise of how important women's contributions has been in the industry, what do you feel about today's panel and event so far that will be a platform to leverage off of?
I think this panel has been great. There's been a lot of amazing women with amazing jobs, and it's so good to get so many different backgrounds and doing, on the Hubble, doing stuff with NASA. This is great stuff that inspires the next generation and showing us, we all didn't look the same, which is great, and that's going to inspire young women and people that don't look like what science looks like.
And so for viewers understanding, can you share with them what would be a real implementation to carry it to another level? I think this is a great beginning, but to really get some numbers and really get people on a momentum where this has become a standard approach to be aware of, can you share with the viewers what your thoughts would be after an experience like today?
Well, I would say come back to your libraries.
When I was in college, I was often the only girl in my class, and so especially during the more hands-on engineering classes, we need to use the bandsaw to cut a piece for some model you're building. They're like, no, I'll do it. I was like, I did this in high school. It's like, I'm good. I got this. And they're like, wait, but you're the girl. I'm like, yes, I am, and I'm still better at it than you are. So I've had a few experiences like that as well. And then, coming into work, it's actually where I was working, it was pretty good. There was not a lot of, I would say, sexism or anything like that. There are a few little things that would happen, like when a chief of staff position opened up, my manager asked me if I would be interested. I was like, why would I be interested in that? I'm an aerospace engineer. Things like I would walk into a meeting and someone I hadn't seen in a while, an older gentleman, had like a, just paper rolled up in his hand like this, and I walked past and he was like, hey, how you doing, Nicole? And bopped me on the head with it, and I was like, oh, okay, that was weird. I probably wouldn't have done that to anyone else, but, a young woman, but, that's some of the things that I've experienced, but like April was saying, that's not to discourage people. Know that there are a lot more women coming into science and who will have your back and will make sure you're seen and heard and that you feel comfortable in your work environment.
People who've gone before have done a lot of the work, and I'm very grateful for that, because I fortunately have never really encountered anything that you guys are talking about. And my dad was certainly completely oblivious to the fact that there would be any, he was like, oh, you're great, you want to do science, excellent, and he'd take me along with him to work and stuff. So he completely did not think of treating me any differently to the way you would a son in that respect. So I was very lucky.
Well, I'd say one of the hardest aspects for me was the long hours I had to put in the lab. I don't know how the other sciences are, but biology is very labor intensive. And the joke was, when your spouse calls and asks what time will you be home, the answer is you take an estimate, your best estimate of how long your experiment will take, multiply by 2 and add 2 hours. So it's, so 40 hours is the minimum, and I think graduate students, postdocs are expected to work much more than 40 hours per week. And sometimes you can't do things in the evening because your experiment runs over, and so I would say that's really hard. You have to be really dedicated, and you have to have fortitude, because although science is very exciting, and I would encourage people to do it, not every day is exciting. You have to put a lot of work into it. You have to have persistence and fortitude and know that it'll pay off eventually. So you have to believe that, and the rewards are big. So.
I can definitely empathize with everything everyone has said so far. The hours are long. For instance, the type of science that I do now, right? I'm the biologist who's working with the engineers, and so a lot of the work I do is helping to design the product, and so that's a lot of computer work, a lot of meetings, a lot of writing things down on paper. And then once we have a successful design, it's really long hours in the lab to test that design. And so those are the days, it's like, who's gonna pick up my kid from school, who's gonna give her dinner, and I've still gotta be to work the next day at 8 a.m. after a really long night. So those days are tough. And then also, again, definitely one of the sole women in most of the meetings that I'm on, and so there's those issues. But I would say outside of those external issues, the biggest challenge that I've seen sometimes happen is something that's more internal and personal, and it's when I've been working on something and I am just really kind of narrow, thinking about it in a form that's just too narrow. I'm anticipating what the answer is because that's what you're trained to do as a scientist, right? You make a hypothesis and in the back of your mind you are anticipating an answer. But sometimes the actual answer or the actual thing you're going to find is going to be very, very surprising and something you don't expect. I remember there was a time in graduate school where it felt like I would never ever graduate because I was really looking for one specific type of biological occurrence, right, with this assay that I was performing. And all along, I did the assay 10 different ways, thinking this is failing, I'm never ever going to graduate, this is all wrong. Literally, months later, I looked back at those 10 assays and realized that if I had just put my eyes down further on my page, I would have found my answer that I was seeking. That was my ticket to graduation. But I had been so narrowly focused trying to find the answer I wanted that I hadn't opened myself to the answers that were going to surprise me.
Very good tip
I had a feeling that being a woman in science is a lot of, more work than, for example, being a man. There are so many things that we need to fight for, and the fact that we are not as many as the men is that we have to very often speak louder.
I let you go because you were so dynamic and passionate about your evolution, especially dealing with the beach and probably a little bit more of not being directed when you were younger.
Right.
And I felt that.
Yeah.
Can you share with the viewers really how young people, especially young ladies or people of color who don't think that they have a stake in the particular field, that it really is there if they do the right assessment, because you've done it. So why don't you share with them your take on that?
Well, yeah, it's really difficult. And I had the advantage that I didn't know that I was a person of color when I was a kid, because I didn't understand that I was an underserved youth, and I didn't think that I was a person of color. I thought I was just a kid like everyone else, and I just did what I wanted to do, and it wasn't until later people told me that. So I didn't have any mentors, and it was really the ocean that called to me, and it's what I wanted to do. So I followed my passion, and later on I found people who were interested in me and interested in what I was doing. But it really came from within, and now it's really great because, like I said, myself and a lot of other men and women are out there making sure we reach the kids that no one else is reaching, because we're here. And you don't have to be white, you don't have to be black. You can be white, black, Asian, and South American like me, and you can still be in science. You don't have to look like everybody on Shark Week. You don't have to follow a certain mold. You can make your own path, and you don't have to find it. I made my own nonprofit, and I work for myself now. I didn't want to fit the certain mold, so you can just really follow your heart and find the people who believe in you.
Done work. We have been through the ringer, and rightfully so. One little piece of data is incorrect, you've got to start all over, which is good. It's a good thing there are so many checks in science that, we're not putting something out there. The autism studies, even the guy who did that said, the data was wrong, and people yet still hold on to that vaccines cause that, and they politicize those things, which is just absolutely silly. And I just remember growing up, we didn't politicize science so much, but nowadays it's like, if you believe in science, that means that, I don't know, you're driving a Prius with your yoga mat in the back or something, going to meditate, and you can't be, and that's what all of us who believe in science are, and but it's frustrating, and I know it frustrates all of us to hear, those things, and it is important for us to speak up. So it's not that I was antisocial, but if I can come out and do more education, I always encourage other scientists. Trust me, I didn't want to be a teacher. I'm not like, that wasn't what I had planned to do, but now it's some of the best parts of my career is to have young women and girls especially go, wow, I absolutely hated math until you showed me that. So,
It's very rewarding.
So I think the general consensus is that we can all say that if not now, at least some point, science has had a PR problem. And it's tough because I think outreach is so important, but all scientists aren't born with those skills to be natural communicators and to know how to reach out and explain their science and break it down. So it's really cool to see more agencies and more companies now offering fully paid and properly respected positions for outreach on the work they're doing, so that we can have people who are not only scientifically inclined, but who are good at speaking and sharing and reaching out and getting to a different level with the public, so they can not only initiate those types of things where they're working, but they can also teach us a bit more about how to be more effective. So it's really cool to see that movement and see more positions where people are being hired for that. So I think that's positive.
So when I think about why is outreach important, it goes so much hand in hand with what the other speakers have said. And I think in addition to, wanting all of our leaders who are making our laws and regulations understand science so that they can make sound decisions, I think it also even extends to our health care. I mean, how many of you guys have been to a doctor and said, does this doctor really know anything, right? Because our physicians, they're getting medical education, which is very different even from science education. And so they're, hearing your symptoms and they're just trying to align it with their textbook, and they're not actually walking through a scientific method to think through your problem and how to actually solve it. So that's why, all of us are at some point going to have some issue we need to see a doctor for. And so I think, this really speaks to the importance of us doing effective outreach to really influence science education broadly.
In addition to everything that everyone was saying, because 100% agree with all of it, I think outreach is really important because it invigorates the younger generation to be interested in science, and all of these things that, like this panel even, is like a great opportunity for someone to learn something that they didn't previously know, or get excited about something that maybe they didn't know they were interested in. And so if we don't, instill the excitement about what science is all about in young people, then who's going to take on after we're all done and retired, So I think that's a really important thing.
Look ahead.
Yeah, I agree with what everyone else is saying and the importance of outreaching. I think that in astronomy, I definitely feel like we have this burden where astronomy is, it has this hook to the public in a way that's not, as political as other sciences, and that it hasn't been politicized, and that it's pretty far removed from most people's daily lives, depending on what we're talking about. And so that gives us the opportunity to have an in with people that might not want to hear from an environmental scientist, or might not want to hear from someone who works on vaccines, but would listen to someone who works on black holes, and that's kind of our in. It's true. That's kind of our in on where we start with the scientific method and how we approach questions and how science works and how much fame you get if you prove major parts of science wrong. It's not a conspiracy. And so having that hook with the public, I think, obligates us to do outreach and do it well. So I think it's super important.
And we have an incredible scientist with us here today. And the reason why she's incredible, because you have to do a lot of processing and translating. And so why don't you share with the viewers why you have to do a lot of processing and translating to really get the real understanding of not only science, but English?
Yeah, so I'm French and I've been living in the US for 6 years. I'm a scientist here in Pasadena, working at Caltech. And sometimes it's been a great challenge to do my job because I'm not an English native speaker. And it's it's a lot of difficulties every day, but get used to it. And after 6 years, and now I'm quite comfortable in English. Still have a strong French accent, of course, but but now, I'm pretty confident in English.
Well, the interesting thing that I gathered from your discussion on the panel, you certainly seem like you had to zero in on your strength to make sure you can become a scientist and be successful with what you've done. Why don't you share with the viewers, really, where did that come from?
I don't know. I think I'm pretty passionate about astronomy. I'm an astrophysicist, and I always knew that I wanted to do that. I know that I want to be an astrophysicist since I'm 12. And I mean, I put a lot of effort into making this dream a reality. So it's been a driver for me all this time.
I have a question for you. Great panel today, the Women of Science. My name is Alan Shea. I'm a producer of our Society show. My question to the panel is twofold. One is, do you believe and feel that one of the biggest movies that helped to elevate the women of science is a movie that came out last year, and what impact did it have on you and your career? And two, since we do have two women of color on the panel, we'd like to hear from them as to the pioneering doors that you've opened up to make sure that other women of color embrace the opportunity of today.
So I'll address the second part of the question related to being a woman of color. Something that I've done recently in collaboration with my husband is we went to Caltech and we said, you know what, we really want to make sure that there's a lot of awareness of all of the African American students who've come before at this university. We want to make sure that there's history and records that document their experiences, because documenting that history is going to encourage other people who look like them to want to participate and do science here. And so Caltech actually had an exhibition featuring the research that they did on the African American experience at Caltech back in June. And it was an in-person exhibition, and they plan to put that research and so much more up on the web within the next several months. And so I think it's a huge win for all of us, because we need our scientists to be diverse.
Definitely agree with that, and I always think it's kind of fun when people ask me my ethnicity, because I'm Eurasian Black Tina. My mother was the first one born here to Hungarian immigrants, and my father's from Rio de Janeiro. So, and especially when I work with kids, it doesn't matter if they're Asian, Latinx, or African. They're like, well, you don't understand. I'm like, ha! Guess what? I do. And so I get to show them that it doesn't matter, because usually when there's a person of color, you're either Latinx, you're Asian, or you're of African descent. And I'm all of those and European, mostly Portuguese, Brazil. So people, I get to bring up those kids who are, there's a lot of kids who have like an African and a Mexican parent, vice versa, etc. Like Nick Gabaldon is a famous surfer that they always celebrate. On Nick Gabaldon Day is the first black surfer. Well, his last name is Gabaldon. He's also the first Latinx surfer that was out. So I always point out these figures to kids, and any of these kids that come up and ask like, well, no, there's no this person, or there's no this person, and no, I think it's still going. I'm trying not to eat it. So I just do everything I can to bring up other kids of color, whatever color they are, and I pass a lot of times, so I bring up the kids who aren't of color, and I just let everybody know that you can do this as well. And the movie for me that I really was in love with was Hidden Figures. That one really, I was so excited and mad at the same time, because yeah, right? I mean, and then there are so many other, I learned about the first African-American marine scientist, and I've been in marine science for a really long time. I just learned about her last week, and I'm just so mad that she's not in the books and like in the limelight. And we all know Watson and Crick founded the double helix of DNA. No, It was Rosalind who did it, and it was her work, but she was difficult. So probably because she, I don't know, who knows. But at any rate, thank you for your question. I'll stop hogging all this up.
I agree. Movies, I mean, this movie, I loved it. I loved the movie about Neil Armstrong as well. And when I was a kid, I loved really movie where you could see I mean, scientists and astronauts or astronomers or whatever. It always has a big impact on me, and I think it's really important to make great movies about science, because it's also one component of public outreach.
I grew up on Star Trek, reruns of the original Star Trek, and even though if you watch them now, you'll be very aware there are the female, scientists who go off on missions. There's also the female yeoman who'll come onto the bridge where there's a red alert with a tray of coffee and then clutch against the captain. But I don't know if that's the difference between the writers of the different episodes or the directors. Anyway, but I mean, shows like that, they did start to show women and people of different diversity and ethnicities doing roles. I mean, in the original Star Trek, the original pilot, the second in command of the whole ship was a woman. And then she got to, the same actress was playing a nurse in the, which is a wonderful profession, don't get me wrong.
So why don't you share with them, what did you think of what today's panel turnout was, and where we can go with this?
The panel's turnout?
Yeah.
So I think the panel, we had a great audience, and I think the panel had representatives from the different sciences: astronomy, engineering, biology, and marine biology were well represented on the panel. And I think we shared a wealth of experience coming from different backgrounds, and although there are many similarities, there's I think a sense of dedication, of determination to carry through, came through.
Wow. And what would you like to share with younger people who was trying to balance all the different areas of science to really seek out what the opportunities are today?
Well, I think they need to visit science museums, read, try to meet as many scientists as they can, take all the science courses that they can in high school, not be afraid. Yeah.
Wow. And last but not least, what would you like to say to everybody watching today about being here in Altadena and what this community offers the folks here who attended, and certainly after seeing the show today, what we get here in our community?
So Altadena is a great place to live up here in the foothills against the San Gabriel Mountains. This event took place in the Altadena Library, which is a great resource and is becoming the center of the community. They have many programs like today's. They're pro-science, they're pro-youth, pro-children, pro-family. It's a wonderful institution, and they want to bring the community in as much as they can. We have other organizations like Altadena Heritage. I sit on the board of Altadena Heritage. We have an active town council, and Neighbors Building a Better Altadena. So if you want to get involved in community events, there's plenty of opportunity, and the first thing you should do if you want to move to Altadena, become acquainted with the library. It's a great resource for the community.
Wow, and with that being said, we're going to say goodnight to the viewers. Thank you, viewers, for joining us today here in Altadena with the Women of Science here in Altadena. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.